So firstly, we are HDK. We are a digital agency and we provide website design and marketing services to arts and cultural organisations like yourselves. HDK was founded over 25 years ago now by Hans de Kretzer, hence the HDK, who started out his career in the marketing departments at Sadler's Wells and English National Opera, and has since grown the team with digital experts who all have their own hand in the arts, just like him. So I'm Phoebe, I'm HDK's Client Relationship Manager, and I work with all of our new clients to identify the right services for their organisation. I've been at HDK now for 3 years, over 3 years now, I think, and my hand in the arts is that I trained as an actor. I am a white woman in her early 30s with blonde hair and blue eyes, wearing a black t-shirt today. Sorry, let me just make sure that everyone's muted. Fab. And I'll hand over to Ali to introduce herself too.
Hi everyone, I'm Ali. I'm HDK's marketing coordinator and I work with a range of clients developing digital marketing campaigns, digital strategies, as well as, very key to today, digital copywriting services. I've been at HDK for over a year and my sort of area of the arts is art history. And I'm a white woman in her 20s with long brown hair wearing a stripy top. It's my visual description for everyone.
Thank you, Ali. So in today's session, we are going to be looking at copywriting for social media. We are going to explore why getting it right is so important, although hopefully we've all got a bit of an understanding of why that is. Some key copywriting principles, an exercise to carve out tone of voice, and how to apply your organization's tone of voice to different platforms. We're then going to take a couple of minutes to invite you all to complete a quick feedback survey before having a Q&A to give us the chance to take a deep dive into the topic together. And if you wanted to share anything on social media today about this session, please use the hashtag that's on the screen now, which is #HDKwebinar. Now, before we kick off the session, we want to get a consensus of how confident you all currently feel when it comes to copywriting for social media. So a poll, if I do this correctly, will pop up on your screen now with 2 questions. If you could please answer them for us. Is everybody seeing the poll, hopefully? Yes, I can see some people are answering it, so hopefully that's a good sign. Give you all a moment to answer that. Okay, it looks like, actually there's still a couple answers coming through. Great. Okay, I will end the poll there because it seems as though most people have answered so far. So interesting results. So do you have a clear understanding of your organization's brand personality and tone of voice? Most of you answered yes, but it could be better, which hopefully puts us in a good position to help you out with that today. And are you confident in how you're currently conveying this personality on social media? Most of you are either yes, but would like a refresher, or no, not really. So we're really hopeful that our webinar today will help you all feeling a bit more confident on this topic. So thank you very much. And with that, we are going to get started. So firstly, why is getting it right so important? Of course, there's a number of reasons. We're going to draw on some statistics today for this section, but don't worry about writing them down or screenshotting or anything. We're going to share them in the chat at the end of today's session. And if people request, we can also share the slides after the session. So just let us know. So the first reason is having a consistent tone of voice. So according to a study by Sprout Social, 83% of consumers prefer when brands have a consistent tone of voice across all their marketing channels, including social media. By using a clear tone of voice, you can establish and reinforce your organization's brand personality, which allows your audiences to better understand and connect with your values. It's also important for humanizing your organization. So social media provides us with the opportunity to showcase your organization's authenticity and build a genuine connection with your audience. In a survey conducted by Stackler, 86% of consumers agreed that authenticity is a key factor when deciding which brands they want to support. So well-written social media copy can help humanize your organization by using conversational language, storytelling, and relatable content. It's also now more important than ever that audiences feel like they can trust an organization, that they're investing their time and resources into engaging with or supporting. A survey by Cohn and Wolf found that 87% of global consumers felt that it was important for brands to act with integrity at all times, so no pressure. But social media offers you the chance to be transparent and genuine and build trust with your audiences and target markets. And our final reason for why getting it right is so important is that effective social media copywriting can help organizations develop a stronger relationship with their audiences. According to a study by Hootsuite, 71% of consumers who've had a positive interaction with a brand on social media are more likely to recommend it to others. So by using engaging, authentic, and personal copy on social media, you can create a sense of community and also encourage advocacy for your organization. So now that we understand why it's so important, let's explore what good copywriting actually looks like. And for the sake of this webinar and the time that we have broken down effective copywriting into 6 key, hopefully easy to remember principles. And we're going to recap these at the end, so don't worry if you don't get them down the first time. So number 1, clear and concise. Keep your social media copy clear, concise, and to the point. Use simple language and avoid jargon or complex terms, and aim to keep your caption short without losing any meaning or impact. Number 2, compelling and engaging. Effective copy should grab the attention of your audience. Try to include the most compelling idea as early as possible in the caption, and think about how you can hook people in without using too much of a clickbaity approach. And use a storytelling approach to do so, which is becoming more and more popular on social media now. The third principle is using a consistent tone of voice. And this is because maintaining a consistent tone of voice helps you to establish your brand personality and makes your posts more instantly recognizable while reaffirming your organizational values. Number 4, search engine optimized. So your social media copy can support your profile's SEO. This is slightly different to website SEO, but it's the same principle. So make sure that you research keywords and hashtags on social media that are relevant to your industry, content, and audiences, and include them in your copy in a way that feels natural to help people find you when they're looking for something relevant. Number 5, accessible. So effective social media copy is inclusive and accessible, and we delivered a whole session on social media accessibility, and it's far more than you can kind of summarize in just a few moments. If you'd like to learn a bit more about that, you can watch that now on our website under our webinar recordings. But in short, there are a few things that you can do to make your social media copy more accessible. Make sure you're using alternative text or alt text to describe images for visually impaired users, and consider those who are using screen readers when writing your captions. So avoid the overuse of emojis and use what is called camel case, for hashtags, which means capitalizing the first letter of every word within the hashtag. I think it's called camel case because the capitals look like bumps on a camel. And finally, steer clear of using any language that includes jargon or complex to understand ideas. And our last key copywriting principle is to include a compelling call to action. So make it clear how you want your audience to engage, whether it's to visit your website or comment on the post, and make sure that you're creating an easy opportunity for your followers to engage and connect with your organization. Of course, this is a very top-line look at what it means to write effective social media copy, but hopefully a good reminder of some key principles to consider when writing your captions. And I'm going to hand over to Ali because we're going to kind of continue to dive into this with her.
Thanks, Phoebe. So carving out your organizational tone of voice. With the majority of organizations and brands using social media nowadays as a way to reach wider audiences and customers, it can be pretty tough to stand out. And this is why carving out your organization's tone of voice is really important. Firstly, you want your dedicated followers to recognize your brand's personality and enjoy that sense of familiarity. And then secondly, you want to draw in new audiences and convert them into followers by making your brand values and character clear from the first instance. So we want to run this section of the session a little differently today and get everyone involved in a copywriting exercise together. But that will come in a minute. So I'll kind of, I'll set it up for you guys now. So basically, we asked our friend, ChatGPT, for a little bit of help. We asked ChatGPT to create us a hypothetical arts organization and give us a summary of their target audience and their brand personality. So using this example, we're going to look at how to create a strong tone of voice for this hypothetical organization. So ChatGPT came up with Artscape Museum of Contemporary Photography. These images are on the screen are just to set the scene. They're nothing to do with this. They're real images from real galleries. So ChatGPT said that Artscape is a photography museum nestled in a historic neighborhood. The museum houses an impressive collection of contemporary photography featuring works by renowned photographers from around the world. It specified Artscape's target audience as photography enthusiasts, art students, professionals in the industry, and tourists interested in visual arts. And finally, ChatGPT outlined their brand values and personality as visionary, thought-provoking, and dedicated to promoting the art and craft of photography. Artscape aims to share the power of visual storytelling and the ever-evolving world of contemporary photography. So it's a little vague in parts, but I think we can work with this. So typically when we're working with our clients on digital marketing strategies, we outline some elements for their tone of voice on social media. So I've put together 3 potential prompts for Artscape's organizational tone of voice. So the first one is painting the picture. The second one is art for the people. And the third one is visionary. So painting the picture is all about creativity and storytelling. It includes descriptive language to spark intrigue and draw on those stories, emotions behind each photograph, as well as perhaps the historical and political context. This prompt really aims to forge audience connection with the pieces of art. The next prompt, art for the people, ensures that the organization fulfills its goal to share the power of photography with a wide audience. So through inclusive language that is warm, welcoming, approachable, and accessible. And finally, visionary. Bit of a less inventive title for this one, but this prompt is about conveying that forward-thinking and future-focused mindset of the organization, as well as communicating Artscape as socially engaged. So now that we've got a bit of an idea of how Artscape wants to communicate with its visitors and followers, we're going to have a look at some potential copy for the museum's social media posts. And this is where we're going to be asking for your input. But first, I'd like to provide a little bit of context. So the context for these example posts is that Artscape are announcing a fashion photography exhibition, including, images like these. We have British Vogue's recent July covers. We've got fabulous Janelle Monáe in the middle there, as well as these photographs of Lizzo on stage in some dazzling outfits, I think from Glastonbury, just over the last weekend. And these posts that we're going to show you are written for Instagram, but can also be adapted to Facebook. And they are to have the image, one of these images of Lizzo. It would be a cover featuring Lizzo. So imagine, kind of have that in the back of your mind with these captions. So the first one is, there you go. We're excited to announce that tickets are now available for our newest exhibition, 50 Covers, showcasing today's innovative fashion photographers and their muses who are breaking the rules of fashion and transforming ideals of beauty before our very eyes. Sparkle emoji. Grab your tickets now to see 50 Covers at Artscape from the 1st of July to the 1st of November. Visit the link in our bio to book. Hashtag 50 Covers. So I would love you guys to get involved now and share your initial thoughts, whether you like this, whether you don't like it, and if just from the first read, is it intriguing? Feel free to comment in the chat, or if you'd like to, put your hand up and join in. Too long? Okay, yeah. Feels like a big block of text. The platform is Instagram. Got the basic information, but not inviting enough. Very wordy. More exciting opening sentence needed. Yeah, feels a little polite for something breaking the rules. That's interesting. I like that. Doesn't feel like they're excited to share the news. Interesting. Key info is right at the end.
I think a lot of the time, sometimes we can fall back on we are excited, but that doesn't actually convey excitement.
What's exciting? Yeah. Yeah, it's the classic kind of, we are so thrilled to announce. More exciting language. Sounds very ChatGPT-like. How would new audiences find it? Doesn't stand out. Lovely. Okay, my next question is, does it make you feel anything? I think we've already got a couple of people saying it feels a bit bland, feels a bit generic, doesn't really feel like there's, that much emotion behind it. Bored. Fabulous. Okay. So now I would like to ask everyone, what could we do to improve it? Again, feel free to drop this in the chat or to, unmute and join in a debate. My first thing would be changing the beginning part to not be opening with the mention of tickets. The fact that tickets are on sale isn't the exciting part. The exciting part is what's going to be in the exhibition, the photos, the photographers, the fashion. Opening, breaking the rules. More spacing. Who are the muses? Tell me the exciting stuff. Yep, share some of the names of the photographers. Make the audience the subject of the post rather than the company being excited. That's great, Henry. Lovely. Okay. Let the pictures do the talking. Yes, obviously we're slightly imagining, but pictures of Lizzo. Okay, so we're going to have a look at another example and see how we feel about this one. So it's about damn time. Introducing 50 covers, sparkle emoji, fire on heart emoji. We're bringing out the fabulous with our newest exhibition that showcases all the varying ways in which beauty cannot be contained or defined. There's nothing more powerful than fashion that makes you feel like the main character. Spanning 50 covers from fashion magazines, this exhibition draws together photographers and fashionistas who are pioneering ideals of beauty that stem from true self-expression. Challenging ideas around gender, race, size, and age, the photographers and their muses slowly untie the tightly bound rules of fashion cover by cover. Opening 1st of July, link in bio for tickets, hashtag 50 covers. So again, I would love to hear everyone's feedback on how you feel about this one. Maybe how does it compare to the previous one? And again, is it interesting? Are you interested in this? More exciting, but perhaps a little too long. Yeah. Relevant, attention to Lizzo's song, grabs attention. Immediately engaging in the first line. Would take out the second paragraph. Feels more aimed at an audience. Feels much more personal. Yeah, so I think overall, this one is speaking to audiences more. It's kind of drawing that storytelling more. But I agree, I think ways to improve this could be 2 separate posts. So we could have the first one kind of on its own, perhaps with the call to action, and then the second one as another post. And it's important to think about your audiences with these, because it really depends on what your audiences react to well. Some longer form captions on Instagram work and some shorter form work. Conveying the actual feeling behind the exhibition rather than just stating that it's on. I like this. And Andreas says, I would change the "there is nothing more powerful" to "is there anything more powerful?" I really like that, making it a question and kind of turning it towards the audience.
Somebody also mentioned hashtags, that some more relevant hashtags would be great, because 50 covers, people might not necessarily find it because of that. Yeah,
and in terms of, you know, SEO as well, it might be helpful to have a few more sort of keywords. And thank you everyone for all of these comments. This is brilliant. I'm really glad that everyone's kind of getting engaged and thinking about how to restructure. Okay, lovely. I think with that, we can perhaps move on. We wanted to do this exercise to kind of think about the different ways that we use language, thinking about the structure, thinking about opening lines, and, you know, kind of how to draw out this kind of story behind whatever it is that you are wanting to share with your audiences, and a reminder to kind of focus on that. So thank you everyone for your participation. So with that, with these thoughts around organizational tone of voice, we're going to move on to thinking about how to apply that tone of voice across different platforms. So in 2023, social media has evolved to a place where each platform really has its own subculture and personality. This means that not only do you need to create a strong brand of voice, but you also need to be able to adapt it to different platforms your organization is using. And it's important to first think about audiences on each platform, so you can define who you're speaking to. I would recommend taking a look through your followers and your demographics on each platform to help with this. This applies beyond copywriting as well, as I'm sure you're all aware, but the kinds of content that you're posting across varying channels should be made with those in mind and should, you know, be driven by the platform. So let's take a look at some copywriting examples from Tate on social media. They do a lovely job of adapting their organizational tone of voice across a variety of differing platforms. So the first one here on Facebook is "the stars rise, the moon bends her arc, each glowworm winks her spark." This verse is from Christina Rossetti's first volume of poetry, Goblin Market and Other Poems, a haunting fairy tale in verse. Christina's poems speak in many voices, tender and fierce, joyful and hopeless, the love between parents and children, and even voices from beyond the grave. In her lifetime, Christina published 900 poems and became a celebrity with the publishing of Goblin Market and Other Poems. Discover Christina Rossetti's poetry, spoken and written, inside the Rossettis at Tate Britain, with a link and then an image credit at the end. I think what's nice about this post is it really sets the scene and introduces the exhibition in a way that draws you in by the opening line of poetry. In doing this, it tells a more exciting story with illustrative language rather than, as we were just talking about, kind of falling into that trap of beginning the post with something like, this thrilling poem or this brilliant poem, which isn't very descriptive or specific. And instead, beginning with the line of poetry is also offering a preview into the works in the exhibition. And from there, the caption goes on to explain the context of the poem and writer, keeping an educational and somewhat artistic tone. There's then a nice, relatively soft call to action at the end with, discover Christina Rossetti's poetry. It's not too much of a harsh sell. And there's also a nice use of emojis at the beginning and the end of the post, making the overall tone a bit more casual and approachable. So next up, we have Twitter. There we go. So we have a little cloud emoji, and it says, the gentle, warming colours of Harold Gilman's portrait of Madeleine Knox captures the artist deep in thought. Playing with her coat, it is unclear whether she has just returned from somewhere or is about to leave. Get up close at Tate Britain. Firstly, I really like how descriptive the language in this copy is. It's drawing on the senses with words like gentle and warming, and immediately creates an atmosphere that draws you in. It's also a lovely piece of storytelling, setting the scene. She's playing with her coat, and there's this kind of ambiguity of whether she's returned or about to leave and what this moment of time is about. The copy draws on human feelings and experiences, such as being deep in thought, which makes it much more compelling for the reader. And there's also a simple call to action at the end where it says, get up close at Tate Britain. I think that's quite nice. It's keeping it short and casual in, the typical style for Twitter. And again, we see a nice use of emojis to keep the tone warm and friendly. And I think this post, like many others from Tate, is maintaining its focus on the piece of art, the story behind it, the way it might relate or speak to the viewer, rather than explicitly, on the exhibition itself. So moving on to our next one for Instagram. So this caption goes alongside a video, and it says, beaches are for ... finding that perfect pebble, the pebble emoji. Barbara Hepworth is one of the most influential British artists of the 20th century. She was at the forefront of international modern art, deeply spiritual and passionately engaged with the political and technological change. Immerse yourself in almost 5 decades of her sculptures, paintings, drawings, prints, and designs in the landmark exhibition, Barbara Hepworth, Art and Life at Tate St. Ives, until the 1st of May, 2023. And then there's, again, a sort of video credit at the end. So here, again, we have a nice introductory line. Tate are clearly paying attention on how to capture people in that first line. It's a simple but relatable callback to something many people have experienced, looking for that best pebble on the beach. And this likely brings back nice memories and prompts a feeling of connection to the post, which might make you want to continue reading. Again, we have a few emojis in the first line, which is keeping the introduction fun and inviting. But then the post continues to bring the context to the video and Barbara Hepworth's works. So shifting into a more educational and curatorial informed tone for this section to inform the reader of the value and extensiveness of her artistic career. Again, we have a call to action at the end that's pretty simple, with just, clear location and dates. It's not too fancy, it's keeping it simple. And next we have an example on LinkedIn. So this one is again with a video, and it says, meet Mikey Hall, our senior art handler at Tate. We caught Mikey dashing from one gallery to the next when he told us all about working with artist Hugh Locke to install the procession at Tate Britain. Hugh Locke's installation is made up of 150 figures, each imagined by Locke and handmade down to every colour and detail. See the procession free at Tate Britain with a few emojis. So what I like about this post is that many organisations struggle with their tone of voice on LinkedIn. Often they lean heavily towards the kind of corporate side, but what happens is they then leave all the traces of that kind of tone of voice that's been set out, that maybe is set out to be bold or artistic or friendly. They kind of leave all of that behind. And that can then make the organizational character or personality appear quite starkly different. So the copy in this example is professional, but still feels very consistent with the tone of voice we've seen across other platforms. For example, it's warm and approachable as it introduces the reader to a senior team member at Tate. And it also remains descriptive and dedicated to highlighting the artwork. It's saying each imagined by Locke and handmade down to every color and detail. And we can also see that the emoji style is consistent with other platforms. And this is something that Tate kind of stays consistent with across them. And so you can kind of start to spot their posts. And finally, we have an example of TikTok. Copy on TikTok is typically short. So we have this one here. The video text says, Maria Bartashova's exhibition, proven to calm and boost serotonin, with 2 sort of sparkle emojis either side. It's simple and short, which is the best way to go typically with TikTok in terms of copy. And we have the nice little sparkle emoji on either side of the word serotonin, which is a quite Gen Z and platform specific kind of style or niche. This is to emphasize certain words and phrases, often kind of comedically making them glitzy and girly or aesthetic. But the key element here is that, again, it's focusing on the positive feelings that you're going to have when you're looking at the artworks in the exhibition space. You're going to feel calm, relaxed. And then again, we've got a super simple call to action in the caption reading Maria Bartashova's is now open at #TateModern with a few emojis and then #serotonin, #calm. This feels very natural to TikTok, where typically the softer the sell, the better. So if there are 2 main things to take away from having a look at all of these examples across varying platforms, the first is Tate's inclusion of storytelling throughout its copy. So each platform, regardless of their style or user demographics, there's a clear thread of consistency in how the copy of the posts come to life and engage audiences by focusing on the art itself. In doing this, the copy draws on the story behind each work, the reader's emotional reaction to it, how they might feel when viewing it, the memories it might evoke, the senses it appeals to, and more. And this creates a far more compelling sell or level of interest than language that is surrounding tickets or kind of, as we spoke about earlier, generalized adjectives. And the second takeaway is that the copy is written with social media in mind. And that might sound obvious, but with it being so commonplace for so many brands to be on social media, I think often organizations forget that these platforms were originally created for social connection. And if you're treating your social media posts like a press release, you'll miss out on truly connecting with your audiences. So in short, if you want your copy to be effective, you need to speak to your audiences like fellow human beings. So I'll pass back to Phoebe.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ali. And thank you everyone for your input on the exercise. It was really great to hear everybody's point of view, and certainly kind of from my perspective, you guys thought of stuff that I hadn't necessarily considered. So that was really useful, which is a reminder of why we love to get everybody together in this way. But for now, we are going to open up a Q&A. So if you want to leave any questions in the chat, we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. Or if you'd like to, if you're feeling confident today, if you'd like to ask your question with your camera on or just your microphone on, then you're more than welcome to do so. As we saw through the exercise, it's really great for us to have everybody's input today. So if there's a question asked that you think, I'd love to contribute to that or give a go at answering it, then please feel free to, because we want to kind of encourage more of a discussion here today. So we'll just leave a moment or two for people to write their questions, and then we'll just get started. Okay, So we've got a few questions in the chat now, and I'm sure more that will come through. So let's start with Lee or Leah. Would you use hashtags in the text or only at the end of the text? I think that's a great question. I'm going to attempt to answer it, but Ali, you might have different thoughts. And again, as I said, please just jump in, everybody. So I would say this really depends on whether a hashtag within the text supports the story that you're telling with the caption. I think sometimes if you use a hashtag in the middle of a caption, it might feel a bit out of place. But if you're talking about, I can't think of an example, which is so typical. But if you're telling a story in your caption that feels relevant to pop in a hashtag in the middle. The only hashtag that I can think of right now is hashtag blessed. Not sure why. But that might, if depending on the sentence, that might feel relevant within. I would say you don't want to use too many. And if you are using hashtags for the sake of SEO, then they are best placed at the end. Yeah, that would be my answer for that.
Yeah, I would agree along the lines of that. I think sometimes maybe hashtagging the artist's name or something in the middle of the post, but I think if you're going to be doing multiple hashtags, you definitely don't want them in the main body, because then it's going to be very difficult to read. Okay, great. I'm just seeing we've got lots of questions coming in now. Would you say that captions on Instagram and Facebook should be quite different in terms of length and style? I think it really depends. Obviously, we've been given generalized information today, but I think it really does depend on your organization, your audiences, and your kind of tone of voice. So typically, longer form on Facebook usually performs well, and slightly shorter on Instagram, but that doesn't mean to say that that's the way that it always works. I think it's good to try out a variation. So perhaps maybe if you're posting a video on Instagram and the video's got quite a lot of like information and context and it's storytelling, then maybe you put a shorter caption and kind of let the asset do the talking. But perhaps there's another one where you really just want to go into detail about a certain artwork, and so you trial a longer form caption there and see how the engagement is, see how audiences react. And the same for Facebook. I think generally longer form captions do perform well, but you might find that for your audiences, people are quite interested in just a shorter post. So I don't know if that's particularly helpful, but really I think experimenting and just trialing kind of different lengths and seeing what you get back.
So Matt left a really interesting question, asking for advice for organizations who have two audiences, for example, young people and adults working with young people. And I think this can be opened up to, organizations that have multiple audiences, and how do you speak to them in a single caption? And I think we have explored some practical ways of doing this with our clients. And what's really useful as an exercise is to take each of your audiences and break down, what are the things that they engage with and respond to, what kind of posts, what kind of tone of voice from within your organization will they connect with. And we've in the past created like a checklist for the kind of voice prompts that Ali was talking about earlier. I think for our hypothetical example, it was painting the picture, visionary. I can't remember what the third one is. I don't know if you can remember, Ali.
As you've said it, I've literally just painted art for the people. It was the nice sort of warm, inclusive, accessible one.
So it can be really difficult when you're writing a caption, and also I suppose it depends on the post. With that post, are you specifically speaking to young people, or are you specifically speaking to adults working with young people, or are you wanting to speak to all of them? And using a checklist for the different voice prompts that connect with your different audiences help you speak in your organization's tone of voice while still connecting with those specific audiences. I feel like I've said audiences so many times, but hopefully that helps.
I think perhaps as well, maybe tailoring the content to the different platforms might help there as well. For example, like if you can identify that that those different groups of audiences might be leaning towards certain platforms more, perhaps even if the content is similar, you trial those kind of two different styles and see how they do, on, say, having one on something like Instagram or Twitter or TikTok, and then another kind of with Facebook and Twitter, and trial the two on the different platforms.
Charlotte's left quite an interesting question. Might acknowledge this might be a large question to ask, but would you say you write each copy for each platform with a different outcome in mind? So for instance, TikTok and Twitter are so brief, so you can't share that much, but Instagram and Facebook can be longer. What do you think on that, Ellie, if you have any thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it doesn't necessarily have to be a different outcome in mind. I guess it depends on what kind of engagement you're hoping to get. I think, for example, if you're wanting people to go and book tickets for something, I don't know, because I was about to say, but I guess it's more the tone that you convey something with, but the outcome might remain the same. So for example, the style on TikTok is not really to sell to people. It's not to say, go out and buy these tickets now, go do this, look at this thing. It's kind of that really soft, just slowly introducing them to concepts, or kind of being relatable, so that over time it generates excitement and people kind of build that like connection and loyalty with the organization. But equally that could lead to going and booking a ticket. I think it's worth, if you're really trying to nail down platform sort of specific copy, having a go at writing different copy for each one, and kind of making them quite different. But I don't think the outcomes necessarily need to be different. It kind of depends on what your goals are. I don't know if that answered the question.
I think so. And it kind of ties on with Emma's question. So how important is it to write different captions for Facebook and Instagram, besides platform-specific hashtags and calls to action? I think that's a great question, because it's important, obviously, to acknowledge that a lot of organizations are quite stretched for time and resources. So of course we want to, as much as we can, reduce the amount of time that we spend on everything. I think I would say it is quite important. I think, you know, the audiences that you have on each will be quite different, but at the same time there will be overlap. So somebody who follows you on Instagram and Facebook, or for instance, you know, TikTok versus Instagram, they'll be expecting something different from you on each of those platforms. And I think if you take a kind of blanket approach, then you risk disconnecting your audiences across, you know, all of the others that you haven't specifically designed that caption for. So where possible, I do think it's quite important.
Yeah, and then there might be certain things that you can keep in each caption. So for example, if time is a concern as well, in you know, writing completely different style and copy for every single post, maybe it's something like, you know, in the Tate's Facebook example of using that line of poetry, you know that you want to use that line of poetry somehow in each version of the copy. So you kind of start there, and then you just tweak and shape it to kind of mold towards the audience that you know that you have on each platform. And that might sort of make it a little bit less time consuming, because you've given yourself a sort of intriguing starting point as the basis for each post, but then you're kind of just chipping away and kind of shaping it into how you want it for each platform.
And so I'm just making sure that we see all of these questions. Somebody asked about Similar to with hashtags, what do we think about tagging organizations and other accounts in the caption copy, basically, rather than at the end? And does that affect screen readers and accessibility? Really good question and a really important consideration. As far as I'm aware, and I think this isn't a super informed answer, and I'd love if anybody has, 100% awareness of this, then that would be great if you could comment. But I think just like hashtags, if you use camel case, so for instance, if you're tagging in Marks and Spencer's, if their at is, Marks and Spencer, if you capitalize Marks and Spencer, then as far as I'm aware, then that will make it much easier for screen readers to pick up that those are individual words rather than one long word. And will make it, the person who's using a screen reader much more able to understand that.
I think, yeah, it might also come down to the amount of tags you have. For example, if you're tagging one organization in the copy, it might not be too disruptive, but if you've got kind of 3 or 4 or even 5, sometimes, if there's a big collaboration, I think putting them all in, even to people not using screen readers, that might feel a bit bulky, and it might be better to put them at the end. There's also that awareness that sometimes organizations' names aren't, the full name, and it could be slightly oddly abbreviated in a way that isn't necessarily obvious to everyone reading the caption. So sometimes it might be helpful to kind of, put them at the end if it's quite abbreviated and isn't clear that it's Marks and Spencer's, although everyone I do think knows M&S.
Yeah. Let's see. So, I can see Meg's answered that question already. Thank you, Meg, working behind the scenes.
I've just seen a question from Naomi saying, do you have any guidance on using emojis/GIFs, particularly with art forms that are typically deemed a bit more elitist but don't want to be? I think this is really interesting, and it's instantly made me think of English National Opera's approach. I believe it's English National Opera, to convert their entire Instagram into a meme page, essentially. And so every post starts with a meme, and then you can swipe and you get the gorgeous kind of professional images. And they've been really successful with that and found, great engagement. And that's kind of their path that they're on now. And it's really kind of opened up that more approachable feeling towards something like opera, which I think can feel quite closed off and quite intimidating to people who don't typically really engage with that kind of art. That's obviously more about memes, but I think if it feels like it fits, I don't think there's any harm in using those to try and soften whatever you're talking about and make it maybe more relatable or more inclusive.
Amazing, thank you. I think we will have to start wrapping up the Q&A. But Alex commented in the chat saying, are there any examples of social media accounts doing it well in the arts in particular? If anybody here has any organizations that they feel inspired by, please don't feel shy to name them. It's always great. It's so useful for us all to be able to look at who's doing it well. Not to steal any ideas, but just to kind of get a sense of, okay, this is how I can interact with that trend, or that's how I can have fun with our organizational tone of voice. So yeah, if anybody has any, then please drop them in. Thank you, Henry, already on that. And with that, I want to wrap up today's session with a very quick summary of our learnings from today. So social media copywriting is important for establishing brand personality, humanizing your organization, earning trust, and building relationships. We reminded you to follow some key principles to make sure that your copy is clear and concise, compelling and engaging, with a consistent tone of voice, search engine optimized with key terms and hashtags, accessible and with a clear call to action. and to identify some key tone of voice prompts to help make sure that your voice remains consistent while playing to each different platform's strengths. So that's the kind of exercise that Ali carried out today with those different prompts. Sam and everybody else that wants to post about the session on social media, that is #HDKwebinar, which Ali has put into the chat now. To wrap up, a huge thank you for joining us today, and thank you everyone. It's been a really kind of engaged and enlightening session for us and hopefully for you too. And we hope to see you all very soon.